Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Telling Stories, episode 7. I'm Andrew Crabtree, and in this episode, I'm a liar. But no, really, guys, I said I was going to post this video last week, and I'm a week late, so I apologize. But we are now going to get into our Telling Stories Rewind series. I think that there were a lot of really good stories that were told back in the 80s and early 90s that maybe have been a little bit forgotten or aren't so fresh with the current generation. So I'm going to go back into my childhood and dig up some of my favorite stories and do rewinds on some old movies. So fire up that VHS player. I'm Andrew Crabtree, and this is Telling Stories Rewind. Alright guys, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that intro I made just for this rewind series, throwing that 80s nostalgia at you with both barrels. So we're going to start the rewind off with a little film called Short Circuit. It was directed by John Badham, who you might know from another film that we will eventually get to on this rewind series, War Games. Now, Short Circuit was released May 9th of 1986, so it's approaching its 32nd anniversary. So if you were born after May 9th of 1986, this film's older than you are, and there's a chance you've never even heard about it, and thus the reason for the rewind. On these rewind segments, I'm not going to go into full reviews and give letter grades and dive into characters and all that. I'm just going to give a brief synopsis, and at the end, I'm just either going to give you a thumbs up, thumbs down. Watch, don't watch. So when I decided to go back and rewatch Short Circuit. So, when I decided to go back and rewatch Short Circuit, I decided I was going to buy it on iTunes, because I don't have a VHS player anymore. So I bought it on iTunes, and one of the first things I noticed, I was really surprised by how good the quality was. Buying it, it was pretty close to HD quality. I was really surprised by the picture quality and the definition, so good job whoever up-res that. So, Short Circuit follows a pretty typically cheesy 1980s storyline where we have a military-grade robot that is actually struck by lightning and magically develops a human personality.
Your mama was a snowblower!
That robot, number 5, goes on a journey that sees him leave Nova Labs, where he was kind of created, and his creator, Newton Crosby, played by one of my favorite classic nostalgia 80s personalities, Steve Guttenberg, who you might know from films like Police Academy, Cocoon, and 3 Men and a Baby. Steve Guttenberg is an absolute 80s nostalgia monster. In this film, Guttenberg's character, Newton Crosby, the creator of these robots, spends most of his time in a van chasing around this robot number 5, who is now sentient, who now has personality and cognition. Also, in kind of a classic 80s fashion, the villain of this story is played by this kind of hardcore security team / military operation that is really overreaching and overbearing and trying desperately to destroy number 5. So really, the whole movie is a series of hijinks where we go from number 5 getting struck by lightning to developing this quirky personality, and the team at Nova Labs chasing him all around the area, blowing stuff up, trying to capture their military-grade robot back. Plot aside, there is kind of another interesting aspect to this story that's worth kind of reading up on. Actor and comedian Fisher Stevens played a character in the movie named Dr. Ben Jabatuya, a character who assisted Steve Guttenberg, Dr. Newton Crosby, with the robots as a scientist at Nova Lab. So the problem here with this is that Fisher Stevens is not an Indian, playing an Indian character. And so that led to a lot of makeup and a lot of stereotyping that I would kind of consider maybe borderline racist.
As we're fond of saying in my country, marketplace make dull home for rodents.
Where are you from, anyway?
Bakersfield originally.
No, I mean your ancestors.
Oh, damn. Pittsburgh.
Comedian Aziz Ansari actually did a written piece for the New York Times about this very issue, and he actually interviews Fisher Stevens. Ansari talks about being a young Indian kid, really being kind of resentful of Fisher Stevens for taking a role away from an Indian actor for this film, and it's kind of his journey through talking to Fisher Stevens, and there's kind of forgiveness. So it's a really interesting article. I'm going to link it in the description below, and I encourage you to check that out. Definitely not something we would ever try to get away with, or would ever get away with in the public perception, doing that today, and for good reason. Just a different time, and just kind of a quirky add to the movie where we've got Fisher Stevens playing this Indian scientist.
Do now.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am planning to scream and run.
Good answer.
Oh!
Regardless of all that, I really did enjoy going back and watching the movie. It was fun. It was very nostalgic. Probably a little more slow and kind of more boring than I remember from my childhood. But I did really enjoy watching the movie. Steve Guttenberg was fun, and as was Ali Sheedy. Their characters are great. Johnny Five really is a rock star. I just think that his character in this robot that's come to life was pretty funny. Definitely one of those things I remember about my childhood, Johnny Five's character. So even though the plot might be a little slow, I definitely recommend watching this. Like any good 80s movie, it's got a really high level of cheesy, especially the end credits. My God, the end credits are over the top cheesy. Hopefully I can find a clip for you.
Easy to find new ways to kill the heart. Now I've been through some changes, laughter as well as pain.
But I recommend you watching this movie. It's kind of an 80s icon, and it's a fun watch, and I'm going to give this a thumbs up. So that's it for my review of Short Circuit. I hope you download it on iTunes like I did. Enjoy it. So come back next time. I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the new Ready Player One movie. I know for a lot of people that love the book, there's a lot of mixed emotions there, a lot of negativity. So come back, check out my thoughts. I'll be breaking down what I thought of the film. As always, if you haven't subscribed, hit that button. I really, really appreciate it every time I get a new subscriber. That's it for Telling Stories, Episode 7. I'm Andrew Crabtree, and this has been Telling Stories Rewind.